evening. The regular meeting of the Wayne-Westland Community School Board of Education is now brought to order on Monday, January 12th, 2015 at 7 o'clock. On behalf of the Board of Education, I would like to welcome everyone. Your attendance this evening reflects the interest in local education and is greatly appreciated. We'll start with item number 189.15, Pledge of Allegiance. If Donovan and Dominique Usselman can come up to the front, they're from Roosevelt McGrath Elementary School, where Miss Jennifer Keats is the principal.
We pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, stay right there in the middle. And Mrs. Medell is going to read a little bit about you to the listening audience.
All right, let's start with Donovan. I'm Donovan Usselman, and I attend Roosevelt McGrath Elementary School. I'm a student in Mrs. Wright's 4th grade class. My favorite subject in school is math, and when I grow up, I want to be a cooking chef or a football player or both. I live with my brother, my mom, my dad. My brother Dominic and me share the same birthday since we are twins. We just turned 10 today. Hi, my name is Dominic, and I'm in Mrs. Cooper's 4th grade class at Roosevelt McGrath Elementary School. I live with my dad, mom, and twin brother Donovan. Today we are celebrating our 10-year birthdays. My favorite subject in school is geography, and when I grow up, I want to be a doctor.
Good. So if you'll stay right there, Mr. Griffin has something for you, and he's going to bring it on behalf of the Board of Education.
I'm going to steal a mic from you just a moment. On behalf of the Board of Education and the superintendent, we'd like to welcome you here tonight and thank you for leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Just as a note for you, my oldest children are twins. They're 53 though. So, so I congratulate you on being here tonight and leading us on behalf of the board and the administration. I have a document. Donovan, which one is? Okay. Is that yours? I'm going to get these right. Donovan? And Donovan, did you bring anybody with you that you'd like to point out for us tonight, your parents and so forth?
Our mom.
Okay. Where is she located? There you go. How about your principal?
All mom and all principal.
Is she here tonight? There she is. Yes. All right. Well, thank you both again on behalf of the Board of Education for leading us in Pledge of Allegiance. And I think you're going to get a picture taken there.
No. Thank you so much. Okay, moving on to item number.
I'm here, and Mrs. Walker.
Present. Let the record reflect 7-0, or 7 in attendance, no absence. Moving on to item 191.15, swearing in of the new board members. Dr. Hamala?
Yes, thank you. First, I'd like to congratulate all of our new and re-elected board members. And we're going to invite you to the center of the room where the microphone is with John Albrecht. And we're going to also ask that the person swearing you in join you, and we'll do the swearing in down below. So we'll ask Charles Trav Griffin and Diane Fritz, who is going to swear him in.
I have Jan here to hold my Bible for her. She said that we can take a picture right here in the middle, I think.
Okay. You want to raise your right hand, repeat after me, please. I, Charles Trav Griffin,
I, Charles Trav Griffin,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Michigan,
the Constitution of the State of Michigan,
that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and I will faithfully discharge the duties
office of the member of the Board of Education
office of the member of the Board of Education
of the Wayne-Westland Community Schools
of the Wayne-Westland Community Schools
according to the best of my ability,
according to the best of my ability.
so help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you and congratulations. And Melody Hines, and she will be sworn in by Pastor William David Sumlin. And this is her son Elijah.
My Sister Melody, if you'd raise your right hand, repeat after me. I do solemnly affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of this state,
and the Constitution of this state,
and I will faithfully discharge the duties
and I will faithfully discharge the duties
of the office of the member of the Board of Education
of the office of the member of the Board of Education
of Wayne-Westland Community Schools in Westland, Michigan,
of Wayne-Westland Community Schools of Westland, Michigan,
according to the best of my abilities.
according to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Amen.
And Carol Medell, and she'll be sworn in by Bill, her husband, and Molly Medell, her daughter.
I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of this state,
and the Constitution of this state,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
of the office of member of the Board of Education
of the office of member of the Board of Education
of Wayne-Westland Community Schools, Westland, Michigan,
of Wayne-Westland Community Schools, Westland, Michigan,
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
And now Shauna Walker, and she'll be sworn in by her husband, Dwayne Walker.
I, Shauna Walker,
I, Shauna Walker,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of this state,
and the Constitution of this state,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties.
of the office of the member of the Board of.
Any other nominations? Okay. Roll call vote. Oh, close. I'm sorry. Motion to close.
Motion to close.
Moved by Mr. Griffin. Any support?
Roll call. No.
Okay. Roll call.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Dr. Weaver,
Yes.
Mr. Buckaloo,
Yes.
Mrs. Hines,
Yes.
Mrs. Madison.
Yes.
I vote yes. Mrs. Walker?
Yes. Let the record reflect 7-0. Moving on to the office of secretary. Any nominations?
Do we have to vote on that? That was was that to close the nominations? We have to
No.
vote now? Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Once you voted.
All right, okay.
Okay.
So I thought I-
Nominate Carol Medell.
Okay. A second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Moved by Dr. Weaver, second by Mr. Griffin. Any other nominations? Any other nominations? Any other nominations? Okay, now I need a motion to close.
We'll move, Madam Chairperson.
Okay, moved by Mr. Griffin. Roll call, please.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Dr. Weaver,
Yes.
Mr. Bakaloo,
Yes.
Mrs. Hines,
Yes.
Mrs. Madison.
Yes.
I vote yes. Mrs. Walker.
Yes. Let the record reflect 7-0. Office of Treasurer, nominations? Okay.
I'd like to nominate Shauna Walker.
Support? Okay.
I'll support that.
Okay, nominated by Dr. Weaver, supported by Mr. Griffin.
Okay, otherwise, Mrs.
Any other nominations? Any other nominations? Any other nomination? Okay,
I'll move to close.
okay. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Dr. Weaver,
Yes.
Mr. Bakaloo,
Yes.
Mrs. Hines.
Yes.
Mrs. Madison.
Yes.
I vote yes, and Mrs. Walker.
Yes, let the record reflect 7-0. Are those all the officers?
Yes.
Okay, these are your new officers, and we're going to take a 5-minute break. Well, let me read them into.
Okay.
You go ahead and read them into.
All right, the new officers for the 2015 calendar year will be Mr. Bakaloo, President, Dr. Weaver, Vice President, Secretary, Mrs. Madell, Treasurer, Mrs. Walker.
Okay.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. We're going to take a 5-minute break so we can.
7:20, and I'm certain that that's exactly 5 minutes. And so we're ready to move forward with our agenda. But I would like to say to everyone here that if you've come for a purpose and you've met that need, you're free to leave. You're also very welcome to stay and participate in the rest of the meeting. But again, if you have other things, I understand there's a football game on tonight. Again, thank you very much. So, we have an hour. So items okay. Item number 193.15, recognitions, presentations. Dr. Harmel.
Thank you, President Buckaloo. We have 3 recognitions that we're going to go through tonight, and we have a number of people here to help us with those presentations and the recognitions. So what I'd like to do is ask everybody who's here for the recognitions of our Board of Education, our President of our Board of Education, past President now, and our Gilder Lehman Institute National History Teacher of the Year. I'd like you all to stay through that period, and then you'll have an opportunity to sneak out, and I know students, you want to get home and do your homework. So we want to make sure we give you enough time. So our first recognition is of our Board of Education members who have served us faithfully and with a tremendous amount of dedication and hard work. And I've asked a number of our students and a couple of our principals to assist with this, and I'm going to ask Principal of John Glenn High School, David Ingham, to go to the podium, and he's going to start off our recognition of our Board of Education members.
Timing is everything. Mr. President, it's been a while since we said that. Tom, congratulations. Congratulations to the other elected members of the Board of Education and our new members of the Board of Education. Congratulations. Dr. Harmala and the listening audience. It's my pleasure tonight to start off something unique for our students. As Dr. Harmala said, we're going to turn the tables a little bit. Our Board of Education, each and every meeting, make it a point to recognize students. You start every meeting with the pledge, recognize students from our elementary school, and most meetings you recognize other student accomplishments and bring them before the board and take care of our students. And you're very gracious at that. So tonight we're going to turn the tables on you a little bit, and we're going to have students recognize you. We have a 2-part presentation for you. The first part will be led by Jennifer Curry and the students from PD Graham, and the second part will be led by students from John Glenn and their assistant principal, Ms. Kim Szynski. And they represent all the students in Wayne-Westland with these presentations from secondary and from elementary. So with that, I'll introduce Jennifer Curry.
Good evening. At this time, I would like to actually call up Miss Jennifer Morris. She is a kindergarten teacher now at PD Graham, who leads our student council. And I would also actually like Kim Szynski to come up from John Glenn. I told her, I said, your name, I'll probably not get it quite right. These two have done a tremendous amount of work with our student councils and have helped us prepare a wonderful presentation for you. So I'm going to ask Mrs. Morris to come over to the podium, and we'll start with our PD Graham Student Council.
Good evening. I lead Student Council at PD Graham along with Eileen Belatico, who could not be here tonight, but I'm representing on her behalf. And I'd like to call up 6 of our Student Council representatives that are here this evening. President Kaya Heron, Vice President Maddie Adams-Hinch, Secretary Haley Schroet, Treasurer Alex Bone, and classroom representatives Allie Cripps and Alina Napier. And they have a poem they would like to present to you.
Thank you for helping us with our activities. Helping us raise money for our school. Always helping our school district.
Never gives up when things are difficult.
Kids come first in your eyes. School board members, we appreciate you a lot.
Thank you, students from PD Graham. And now I'd like to introduce the John Glenn Student Council representatives that are here with me tonight. Ms. Becky Hallman, coming up, Mr. Grant Brown, Sandra McCrae, and Caroline Mahalik.
Good evening. My name is Caroline Mahalik. I am a senior at John Glenn High School. This is my 4th year serving as a representative of the John Glenn Student Council. Tonight, the members of the John Glenn High School and PD Graham Elementary School Student Councils would like to say thank you to the members of the Wayne-Westland School Board. As a token of appreciation for all the support you have provided, we would like to present you with a photo book of memories created by the John Glenn and PD Graham Student Councils.
And, the high school students and the elementary school students are going to come down, and I'd like to ask Mr. Griffin and Ms. Walker and Ms. Madison and Ms. Hines to kind of stand behind the 3 board members in the center. We'll put the high school students in the middle down below, and then the elementary students to get a picture.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Great idea. John.
Thank you.
And we're going to get the high school students with their back to the wooden portion so that they're standing in front of our board members. And elementary, turn yourselves around with your thank you so it shows out that way. Perfect.
Okay, here comes the photographer.
Everybody look at me. One more. Good job, Dean. Thank you very much. Thank you, students, and from the elementary, P.D. Graham, and from John Glenn for coming out tonight. Also in front of our board members is a recognition certificate on my behalf for the school district, and Governor Snyder actually provided a proclamation as well, which is in the board packet tonight. So thank you from the governor, thank you from myself, and on behalf of the school district, and obviously our students as well. We appreciate you and all that you do for us. So thank you very much.
Dr. Harmala, one last note on that presentation. I would be remiss if I didn't thank Kim Szynski for putting that book together and taking all the thoughts and work that the students did and providing the technical support to put that book together. So she did a wonderful job. Thank you.
Thank you, Cal. Our next recognition is for all of the hard work of our past president of our Board of Education, Shauna Walker. She has been a great service to our Board of Education and to our school district. She's been extra support for me as I've transitioned into the district. She's spent a lot of time in extra meetings, making sure I was comfortable and acquainted, and always making sure that we're organized and ready to go as a district. So, Shauna Walker, thank you for your service, and if you would come down to the center, I have a plaque of recognition for you. On behalf of Wayne-Westland Community Schools, thank you for your service. Thank you for all you do. She's gone again. I guess that I should come right again.
We got to go back.
Okay, and our next presentation, I'm also going to invite Principal of John Glenn High School, David Ingham, back up to the podium for a presentation of National History Teacher of the Year.
Good evening again. I need my glasses for this one. This is probably the most distinguished award that I have had the pleasure to be associated with in my 20 years of public education. So tonight I have the distinct pleasure to introduce the 2014 National History Teacher of the Year, right here in Wayne-Westland Community Schools and at John Glenn High School. But before I bring Michelle Anderson up, and I want her to talk to you a little bit about the award and some of the activities that got her recognition, I want to talk just a minute about two areas. One, I want to talk a little bit about Michelle, and I want to talk about the award and the process to get us here. And I promised I would take good care of it. This is the award, and I told Michelle I would take care of it just to show the board tonight and bring it, and she's going to take this back home with her. You know, I first learned about Michelle Anderson, I won't say how many years ago, but it was a number of years ago, and actually Tom Buckaloo talked to me about her first, I think. Tom was getting close to retirement, and he was the department chair at John Glenn in social studies. And he talked to me about Dave. He said, I want to have a co-chair, co-department chair, so that I can transition with this person until I'm ready to retire. And Tom said, I want it to be Michelle Anderson. And at that time, she was a fairly new and younger teacher in our department. There were many senior teachers in that department, more experienced than her. And Tom told me, Dave, you just watch. She'll be a star someday. And Tom was right. So he was the first one that really put that thought in my head. Then I went away from Glenn for a while, and I came back. And Michelle and I started talking again, and sure enough, she was the department chair and running a great department and doing everything you could ask a teacher to do at Glenn. she talked about two things in the years that I've known her that are passionate to her. Beyond her family that's here to support her tonight, that I have had the pleasure to meet several times, her husband and her kids, and I hope she'll introduce them when she comes up. But the two things that are most passionate to her are teaching history to her students and her love and appreciation in honoring veterans. So, you know, I want to read a quote from the award presentation that she had from Michelle. In this program from the award, it says, this is her quote, "Students get excited about history when somehow it becomes real to them." And that's really what Michelle is all about. For years now, I have watched her make history real for the students. And believe me, that's a chore. You know, I mean, studying the books and all those facts and the historical documents can be kind of dry on occasion. But Michelle has spent her career making history real. She takes kids on field trips to bring the reality of the history of what they're studying to their current lives and makes it real for them and makes it current. And that's what gets them engaged, and that's what gets them excited. And she has spent her career doing that. It's gotten her recognition in the Michigan Department of Education. They frequently ask her to come up when we can let her go during the school year and over the summer to review social studies questions for our students' assessments and work with the Department of Social Studies and History in MDE, and she's a valued member of that team. The second love that she has, her and I found out together as we told stories about veterans. Being a veteran myself and my father, and her love of her grandfather who was a veteran, and we started sharing stories back and forth. And that fueled her second passion. She has a passion about veterans, and I think it stems from her grandfather. So really this series of awards, I'm going to shift gears to the award now and tell you how those two passions together, I believe, brought about this award. Probably 3, maybe 4 years ago, she came with this idea of merging these two things, bringing history to real life for our students and at the same time honoring veterans. And she had this idea of an oral history project where students could look at another generation, interview this next generation, and then celebrate them with a USO-type dance. And she started it with World War II veterans, and it's taken off from there. She did that 1 year, then the next year she took on Korean War veterans, and this year she's working on Vietnam-era veterans. So, and each year she did an activity with her students that brought it to life, and then all these interviews ended up in the Library of Congress. Now, this really stemmed the process leading up to this award. When she started doing this with the veterans organizations, the word got out, I believe, through the History Channel. And Tom, I didn't realize that you guys were such a close-knit group. But these history folks from the local and state level took this. They came to that event. They came to that first event, the World War II USO dance, saw the recognition of the families and the veterans that were there, watched the oral history project from the students, looked at the videos, and took it from there. So last year she won the Michigan History Teacher of the Year award, I believe based on those events and all the work she's done here in Michigan. Then that group, during that awards presentation, and I believe some of the board members went to Lansing when we had that too last year, they kind of got Michelle and I off to the side and they said, you know, we have this other award that we've never won, this National History Award. And they're right, nobody from Michigan has ever won it. And they said, Michelle, would you like to be considered for that? And Dave, would you nominate her and go through that process? And of course we said, sure. And that's how this award started. So that community from the humanities grant that she won to put on that first project then developed and grew, and they kept grooming this and enjoyed it so much that they promoted it and then took the national award nomination that we did and elevated it, and then she got notified this fall that she actually won the award. She and her family were taken to New York to the center, the Institute for American History, where she was presented the award. They took her whole family. They also took 2 of her students and their parents to participate in that. And I know Tom went and represented the school board at that award ceremony, and it was a terrific event. So I couldn't be prouder of anybody. Michelle, come up here, bail me out here.
Well, thank you, everyone, for giving me the opportunity to speak. And I, too, have my thank yous regarding this award, because the reality is this award would not have been possible without this community. Tom Buckaloo is like a dad to me. And I'm not joking when teachers at the school call me Little Buck. They still do. I inherited that when I became sharing the department chair with him. But the community has really made this award come to life, because without the community, we wouldn't have people to interview. Without the community showing up to our first World War II USO dance, there were 600 members of the community there. Last year, we had about 700 members there. This year, we have been told, you might need a bigger venue. Our Vietnam veterans and the Korean War veterans and World War II veterans who have all attended, they want to come back. And the other part that keeps growing are our students. Our students, the word is out. I surveyed students at the beginning of the school year, and I passed out papers, and I said, I just want to know how many have heard of this. And a lot of them had attended, a lot of them had not attended, but said, they indicated in their survey that they planned on attending because they'd heard about how much fun it was. One of the students that I brought with me to New York was Aaliyah. And last year, she admitted she went to the dance for the extra credit. It's all right. She had such a good time with one of our Korean War veterans. She kept him on the floor dancing all night long, and it changed her. And now she's back. She's doing interviews again. She went to New York. It was a very emotional speech, and it's made a difference. So I know that this has an impact on the students as much as it has an impact on the veterans. We just conducted interviews number 40 and 41 today after school. I had students who, on their own, they weren't getting extra credit. They wanted to do it. We had 2 World War II submarine men come in, and they were interviewed. We didn't leave school till 4:30. Those students volunteered to stay after school and do extra work. How many times do you hear that happening? So I know it's having a great impact on the students as well as the veterans. So I want to go back to my thank yous. Thank you to my husband, Greg, and my son, Ryan, and Derek and Elizabeth. And Derek and Elizabeth as well are twins, because they have supported me with the, being home late after school because we're doing interviews or, working with dance projects, or, the other night I was recording some of the oral histories and putting them onto DVDs, as well as my summer projects that I engage in as well. This summer I was down in the World War II Museum in New Orleans for a week, working with historian Donald Miller and other teachers. Last year I was in Germany for 2 weeks with the Transatlantic Outreach Program, learning about the German school system. I've worked the last 3 summers with the National River Battlefield and the Monroe Historical Society. This one is great. Last winter, as you know, Nora Wayne in Wayne-Westland School District, I worked with the Detroit Historical Museum creating a lesson plan to commemorate Nora Wayne and teach our students about Nora Wayne, and that went into the Detroit Historical Museum. You can visit it on their website, and that helped kind of contribute to their historical marker that was presented to them by the Historical Commission this fall, in late October. So we're doing a lot of extra work, and my husband and my family have sacrificed in order to let me fulfill my passion. I also need to thank David Ingham. Where did you go, David? There he is. Because the reality is that without him, this too would not have happened. In a time where it's getting harder and harder to fit extra activities into our curriculum, I came to Dave a couple of years ago, like he said, and asked him, actually, I should rephrase that. I told him, I said, don't tell me how I can't do this. Tell me how you can support me doing this. And I then went into asking him if I could fill out this grant application, and I told him my idea, and he supported it. He could have very easily have turned that down and said, oh, we can't fit it into the curriculum. It's not into our plans, and he didn't, and we got it. And ever since then, it just keeps kind of snowballing. This year, we earned ING, which is now Voya Financial Unsung Hero Award, to help us finance the dance. Today, I just received a grant from Target for a field trip. Now, my students this year not only will be working with the Vietnam USO dance, but they also are going to be able to go out to the actual Fort Wayne, where the Vietnam veterans from this area mustered in at. And I've been talking to the Fort Wayne Historical Society, and they are going to put together a mock mustering in ceremony so that the students can actually feel what it was like to be mustered in at historic Fort Wayne. So we just received a grant for that too. So without Dave, this wouldn't have happened. And then, of course, he nominated me for the award, and he's been there to support me every step of the way. Every time I ask him, hey, can I do this? He trusts me, and absolutely he's supported me. I also need to thank my social studies department. Steve Kahn is here tonight, and many other members of my department have committed endless hours working alongside on all of these projects, whether it's decorating or getting their students to also get in with creating the remembrance boards and documenting veterans and all kinds of different things. My social studies department has always been there, as well as the John Glenn staff. Scott Kramer leading the band and the orchestra, or the John Glenn singers. Without him, the USO dance wouldn't be as successful as it's been. The Michigan VFW has been there also just to support step by step. The Gilder Lehrman Institute of American History and the History Channel and Preserve America, from which this award came from, they're also contributing to getting the word out about what we're doing with our students in this oral history project. So I was told to keep it somewhat short. I'm sorry, I'm babbling on, but I just want to thank everyone. It's been a great project. I hope April 29th at 6 o'clock at John Glenn High School this year that you will stop by, see the work of the students, because it's not just history students. Although the history students do the remembrance boards, and when you walk in, you're going to walk down the hallway of memory, and these are they researched deceased veterans, and they have a project to display their memory, and then we're going to go into the dance, and you're going to meet these veterans, and they're awesome, and the kids are awesome. They get out there and they dance with them, and it's such a great night, and you're not going to be disappointed. So mark it on your calendars, and thank you very much for letting me talk, and have a good night.
And thank you all, and all of our student presenters, and Michelle and her family, and anyone else who would like to leave and not stay for the business meeting. We certainly understand. Those of you who'd like to stay, feel free. We'll give you a second to gather your things. Oh, I'm sorry. Hold on one second. I forgot a part. President Buckaloo, feel free to hit that gavel. We've got one more point of recognition with this.
We need you, Mrs. Anderson.
Right in the middle, right there is great.
Well, the award that we have for Mrs. Anderson isn't nearly as nice or as polished, but it comes from the heart. It truly does. It was my pleasure and my honor to be in New York for the presentation. The presentation was made by Dr. Earl Lewis. Dr. Lewis is a published historian. He's also president of the Andrew W. Mellon Foundation. And in his comments prior to actually presenting this award to Michelle, he talked about the aha moment. Mr. Ingham alluded to that. That moment when the lesson in the textbook kind of transcends, moves off the page, and into the fabric of the student. And if anything, that's what Mrs. Anderson's Oral History Project does. It brings history alive to their students. And I couldn't have been more happy than to be there and witness that. And so as a small token of appreciation of the board, we're going to give this certificate to Mrs. Anderson. It reads, "The Wayne-Westland Board of Education recognizes your outstanding accomplishment in attaining the Gilder Lehrman Institute's National History Teacher of the Year Award." And put this with all of the others. Fantastic job.
Okay, now I think we've finished all the awards. Did I miss anything? I'm getting the nod that I have not forgotten anything. All right, thank you for being here and helping out tonight.
Oh, yeah.
Michelle? Don't forget, no, that's yours.
That's all I have. Give me the top.
There's nothing on here, too.
You should acknowledge that your county commissioner here was in
This Fred, my friend Fred, who is an aide, he came to the Veterans Day ceremony at the high school. So I'm beginning to get them to come back.
Okay. So we're back at it, and before we get started, I would like to acknowledge the fact that Mr. LeBlanc is here, Wayne County Commissioner, and we just wanted to give you a heads up in case you have to leave early.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on then. We're now at item 194.15, citizen comments, agenda items only. Are there any comments? Okay. That brings us to 195.15, consent agenda.
Move approval.
Support?
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I assume that we're ready to vote.
Mr. Buckaloo?
Yes.
I need to change the rotation, don't I?
That's fine.
I apologize. Next month. Dr. Weaver?
Yes.
Mrs. Madison?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mrs. Hines?
Yes.
I vote yes, and Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
7-0.
And that brings us to item 196.15, review and approval human resources items. Ms. Bohl?
Thank you, Mr. Buckaloo. Tonight I have the pleasure of recommending Dr. Stanley Shaka for the Executive Director for Student and Legal Affairs position. Dr. Shaka currently serves in a similar capacity as the Director of Student Services for the Garden City Public Schools. Prior to working for Garden City, Dr. Shaka worked in a variety of positions, including from a private practice of his own to serving as an adjunct professor in post-secondary education. Stanley has a bachelor's degree in psychology, a master's degree in clinical psychology, and a PhD in counseling.
Thank you. We need a motion?
Move.
Support.
So moved.
Support.
Moved by Dr. Weaver, support by Mrs. Walker. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I assume we're ready to vote.
Mrs. Madison?
Yes.
Mrs. Hines?
Yes.
Dr. Weaver?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
I vote yes. Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
And Mr. Buckaloo?
Yes.
7-0.
Let the record show it's a 7-0 vote.
We do have Dr. Shaka in the audience.
Would you care to make some comments to us, please?
Mr. President, thank you very much. Very briefly, I'd like to say thank you to Dr. Harmala and her administrative team for the confidence and trust in me in this position and ultimately to your support, the Board of Education. I look forward to the pleasure and opportunity of serving this great community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 197.15, review and approval, business services and finance items. Mr. Leschenscheider?
Okay, thank you, President Buckaloo. Tonight we have the amendment, first amendment to the general fund operating budget. If you have your pink booklet, I would go to page number 1. It's a memo. First, first I just wanted to remind you how we set the budget last June. When we budgeted for 14-15, we based it on the governor's budget, which he had proposed in February, because at the time, I believe it was early June, we didn't have the legislative school aid budget at that time. The governor's budget called for a $112 per pupil increase. We had estimated a 50 FTE reduction in student count, and there was elimination of MIPSR's 147A funding, which would represent $1 million to the district. The actual school aid for 14-15 is a $175 per pupil increase. The fall count, we were down 314 FTE from prior year, and there was continuation of MIPSR's 147A funding, which represented $1 million. And if you would go to your first page there, you'd see the original budget. Total revenues were $104,979, and our total expenditures at the original budget, $105,472, represented a deficit spending of $500,000. The amended budget will be at revenues $104,735 and expenditures at $104,673 for basically a balanced budget or a surplus of $61,000. And some of the items that are on the first page, some of the differences, the large differences, local tax, we received a $300,000 check for delinquent taxes. Tuition for Voc Ed is a reduction for the Inkster students that are now our students. Previously, we received tuition for those students because they're in another district attending Career Tech. Miscellaneous revenue is that increased slightly, $27,000 for the auction proceeds that the board approved, $48,000 for prior year insurance reimbursement. Normally, we just offset the reimbursement from insurance to the expense, but when it happens in a year that didn't occur, we record it as miscellaneous revenue. And what I'd mentioned here is that $100,000 basically represents a teacher. So when we talk about increasing, decreasing, we look at it as FTEs. Act 18 is the next item. That will be up about $500,000 from previous projections. This increase for Follow That Kid, where we receive money from RESA for, this is to serve the IEPs. And for paras, the district receives 72% funding from RESA in the year that we supply the service, and then we receive 28% the following year from the state as special education reimbursement. And the last item of note there is the special education reduction, and this is based on the actual costs from the prior year times 72% for all tuition or transportation costs and 28% for special education services. So our revenues are actually down $244,000, but again, that was based on, we took a conservative approach. We budgeted on the governor's budget, and now that we have the actual, we're able to update that. So we're in pretty good shape. One item that I do want to point out in the revenues, I had mentioned earlier the MEPSR's increase of about $1 million. We have it as $1.2 million. We will receive this year $7.9 million for funding of MEPSR's costs, and that's based on our previous year salaries. What we report to ORS, we receive 10.12%. And so the rate that we're basically paying on is about 25%. The total raise is about 35%. So again, that's $7.9 million. Going on, any questions on revenues? You want to ask questions as I go or wait till I'm done? It's up to you. Wait till I'm done? Okay, thank you. Okay, expenditures. On the second page, you can see the overall decrease in expenditures is about $800,000. This was accomplished by implementing some zero-based budgeting techniques, talking to department heads, talking to people that are in charge of budgets, asking if they really need to spend that money, sort of challenging people, I guess, and looking at building a budget from zero and looking at your priorities and what you need. What we found when it took a little more time to budget this year because we looked at each line item, and we found some line items, about 4,500 lines in the general fund budget. When we were looking through some of the budgets, we found some lines that were budgeted historically. And, when you compare year to year to year, you find that maybe you're not spending some of the money. We found some line items like that. Not big money, but you're talking one, 24,000, another 15,000. But these are some of the things that come out when you do a zero-based, more of a scrutinized budget with more eyes looking at it. The January amendment, when you look at the differences, we have actual staffing. We had staffing as of December 1st, so, Stanley, wherever he's at, he's probably not on the budget. No, I take that back. I'm sorry. I did budget. I budgeted a replacement for John because he told me, and Michelle told me we would have one. So the overall change in salaries, retirement, and FICA is $600,000, lowering it $600,000. Another item that I'm going to point out on the insurance, why I didn't include that in there, it's actually an increase of about $300,000. About $200,000 that is for the HICA tax, which is a federal and state tax based on usage. It's a 2% tax, and that represents, again, about $200,000. Mesa last year paid the full 2%. This year what they're doing is they're paying 1.25%. We're paying 0.75% or 3/4 of it. So that amounts to $200,000. If Mesa were to discontinue that, it would be about $500,000 cost. So our costs would rise next year. that's something that we'll be watching out for. Decrease in purchase services is through, again, a review of individual line items. Increase in supplies is really due to tech licensing for 3 years. What we're able to do is John and Seth approached me and said we have an opportunity to save $25,000 if we do a licensing for 3 years. Made sense to me. We can't invest $120,000 and make $25,000. So what we did is we paid the $120,000, increased the technology budget by 80, and the next 2 years the budget will be decreased by $40,000. So we basically, are just saving costs in the future years. So the net result is a slight increase in fund balance of $60,000. This will be about a break even, and it would maintain the district's fund balance at $3.8 million. On Friday, January 2nd, Kelly and I met with the EA, the teachers negotiating team. We reviewed the budget. This afternoon, we met with the union presidents, and we, again, went through the budget amendment. We stressed that we are close to fixing a structural deficit. We're at a break even. We're all very conscious of the lame duck session, the early warning bill. Although it didn't pass, speculation is that it'll come back. So it is on everybody's mind that we don't want to do something to district short term that could hurt us in the long term. The unions want to be a part of the budget process, which we welcome. And what we're looking forward to is a zero-based budgeting. I've talked to Michelle and Cabinet, and what we're looking at doing is working with certain departments, a couple departments, big departments, instruction, B&G, maybe special education, and try a zero-based budget approach for this year. And then next year, we'll have people, we're basically training the trainers, we'll have more people that can help go through the process. Projections, going for next year and the end of this year, big unknown is the May election, where we have the sales tax increase for the gasoline or the roads. And again, we'll use the governor's budget that comes out in February for projections for next year. What we'll have to do, or what we would propose doing, is coming back in March or April with another amendment. We'll look at the current budget, and then we'll do projections for next year. That will allow us to apply for best practices money, which represents about $600,000 in the budget. Again, we'll start the zero-based budgeting probably in February, March, hopefully have some of that implemented for the amendment in March or April, and then we'll start a full zero-based budget process next year for the following year. That's all I have, unless you have questions.
I think a motion is in order.
So moved.
Support.
I'd like to speak to the motion.
Discussion.
Yes. I don't have any specific questions because as a member of the Finance Committee, I've sat through this all the other day. I just want to say a few things I think the public should know on behalf of this Board of Education. You look around the school districts around us, and many of them are in deep financial trouble because they never made the kind of cuts that we made. I wasn't here, members of this board were, that made that cut, and I appreciate it as a member of this board. We're not in any financial difficulty in terms of, quote, an emergency manager, nor do we want to be, or will we be. If I think this board is very cognizant of that. But, we can't control the revenue. Who knows what's going to happen in May? But we can control the expenditures. And I commend the superintendent and the staff of the finance department, who has for 10 years been given an award for their accuracy and projections and budgeting, which I think a district this size, that says a lot about our staff on the real plus side. So I just think we have to remain vigilant, and I said this in the Finance Committee, about the expenditures, and I agree with the zero-based budgeting. Those things that we used to be able to do, if we can't do them, we have to look closely at that to see if we can still continue to do that, or do we have to fine-tune our budget towards strictly student academic progress. So I want to commend the superintendent and the finance staff and the other staff that contributed to this as a member of the Finance Committee. And this Board of Education is very clear that we're not going to be a member of, quote, the emergency manager group. We want to run our district because we think we have good personnel up here. We know we have that can run this district the way we want it run for the benefit of our students. So I think the finance staff, superintendent for her leadership, and this board. And that's my comment, Mr. President. Thank you.
Yes, go ahead.
Just a comment. One of the things that Mr. Griffin, Mr. Buckaloo, and I did on Saturday was we spent all day at a school law and finance. And some of the issues that were addressed are on our budget, of course, that I think a lot of us aren't really aware of, the little small nuances like best practices. We can't really know what it looks like until the governor tells us what it looks like, and it probably won't be till closer to February till we hear what we're going to need to do in order to qualify for that extra money, or that the MESPERS is based on last year's staffing, but this year's staffing numbers don't match last year's staffing. So there's always a discrepancy between what you have now and what you used to have and what you're going to have to pay. So just, you know, small things like that that you don't stop to think about that affect our financing here. And I think most people don't understand school financing. I'm one of those people, and I've been here for a while. And it boggles the imagination because it's constantly changing. So as soon as you think you have a handle on it, they change the game. And so you're constantly playing catch-up. And as much as I thought I knew about school financing, I learned a lot this weekend about that, which helped me to better understand what was going on with this budget amendment and why it was necessary. So I thank you and your department for assembling this and making it as easy to read as possible.
Thank
you.
I just would mention that's part of the zero-based budgeting is not only the expenditure side, but explaining how we're funded too. You know, so it's, you know, Kelly and I meet with the union presidents. We try to explain, you know, the revenues, the expenditure sides. You know, I try to make it understandable, but I'm not sure it's always understandable. But, you know, they let me know when there are things, and you know, we have open discussions, so it's good. And you know, like I said, we're trying to educate the staff so we all have a good understanding, so we can have better conversations going forward and understand, you know, what the budget means. So.
And I'd like to have a couple of comments, and one to piggyback on what Mrs. Bedell said. Very likely that you're going to be required to close the books on this fiscal year before you get the final word on what our revenue is going to be.
Oh, sure.
Which is, well, it's been said, it's mind-boggling. That's hard to believe. I noticed that our fund equity is slightly improved with this revision. It falls short of the 5 to 10% that we'd love to have, but it's a step in the right direction, and I think we appreciate that.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have a comment? Call a question.
Dr. Weaver.
Yes.
Mrs. Hines.
Yes.
Mr. Griffin.
Yes.
Mrs. Madison.
Yes.
Mrs. Walker.
Yes.
I vote yes, and Mr. Buckaloo?
Yes.
7-0.
And you have another item, sir?
Other item. Thank you, President Buckaloo. Before you tonight is a purchase agreement for Blanchette Middle School. This is from Dr. Spann of Covenant Second Baptist Church for $1, and the purchase agreement is dated December 30th, 2014. We did tour the building with Dr. Span and informed him, this was actually back in September, October timeframe. We informed him that we'd be soliciting bids to abate and demo Blanchette Middle School. We followed up the communication with a letter from Clark Hill to Dr. Span dated September 3rd, 2014, reiterating to him the process the district was following to review the bids solicited by Wayne-Westland to abate and demo Blanchette Middle School. I'm recommending that the board not approve this agreement based on Public Act 96 of 2013 is legislation that dissolved Inkster School District. Through that legislation, students and property were divided among the districts of Romulus, Taylor, Westwood, and Wayne-Westland. Property within the boundaries established became the property of that district. For Wayne-Westland, that include Blanchette Middle School and the acreage on Parkwood. And Blanchette Middle School was received, when received, was in disrepair, requiring extensive repairs. As you know, the board approved demolition of Blanchette Middle School at its November 10th board meeting. Upon approval of demolition by the board, the district executed a contract with Wayne-Westland to abate and demolish the building. Funding to demolish Blanchette Middle School at this time is completely funded by the state of Michigan at an estimated cost of $515,000. All sale proceeds from the sale as part of the Act, Public Act 96, would go to the state of Michigan to pay down the debt of Inkster. With a sale of the property for $1, I don't believe this would serve the taxpayers of the state or of Inkster in paying their debt to the state and on their bonded indebtedness. So I'm recommending you not approve this.
I move that we go with the recommendation of the Finance Committee to not approve the purchase agreement.
Support.
Supported by who? Dr. Weaver?
Dr. Weaver.
Discussion.
Discussion?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
I agree with the recommendation for all the reasons that have been outlined here, particularly in terms of what it may cost us as a school board if we don't approve this agreement. We may be back where we started, $500,000 in the hole. You know, there's a good reason for this motion, I believe. Thank you.
And I'd like to add that, when I looked at the application, while the address was appropriate, they named the school inappropriately. The reference was to Inkster High School as opposed to Blanchette. And second, I do believe that the interests of the citizens of Inkster are better served if we hold control of that property as opposed to turning it over to anyone else at this time. And just one point of order. A yes vote on this motion is a vote to reject the purchase agreement.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay. So a yes rejects it. Does anyone else have a comment?
I also questioned about it saying Inkster High School, so I wanted to make sure that they were discussing the Blanchette and that they were at the right school board.
Yeah, the address is correct, and you know, as I said, we did meet with the doctor, told him in September what the process was going to be. So I guess I was somewhat surprised to receive a purchase agreement. So
I'm a little concerned, as you said in your comments, about the indebtedness that is left to the residents of Inkster. And I think it is our responsibility to make sure that we can do the best we possibly can by those people who will be handed a big bill that they don't really need or expected to have handed to them.
Yeah.
And I think it's our responsibility to do the best job we can.
I would like to add on to that, that I think it's very important that we start moving into a more forward-thinking process, that we stop seeing Inkster as a separate entity as us, and that we all are a part of Inkster, and keep in mind that it is our community, and it's in our best interest for us to help maintain that property for our community, including all of our cities as a whole and all of our children as a whole.
I just have one question. How much does it cost to maintain that property?
Utilities, I believe we estimated about $80,000 to $100,000. The asbestos abatement alone on that is $372,000 because we have the district, the buildings that we owned prior to this, we have done some abatement of asbestos. So the 4 buildings that we are demolishing, average about $70,000 to $80,000 of abatement. This one, again, is in disrepair. It has some broken pipes. And again, the asbestos. I mean, there's a large amount of asbestos in the building, so.
Maintenance costs to us will be rather high, but demolition costs to us will be
Zero.
nil.
Yes. At this point in time, I think that's why one of the reasons to recommend it is there is legislation to reimburse us for all demolition costs. If we were to lease it or sell it, or let's say we were to lease it, that opportunity may not be around in a year or two. And then it would fall upon the district to maintain the building or demolish it at that time. We will still be mowing, but there won't be a building. It's easier to mow. We won't have to maintain the parking lot. Right now, we have to, all of our vacant buildings, we have to clear the sidewalks, clear the parking lot for insurance purposes. So.
Additional comments, questions? Call the question.
Mrs. Hines?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mrs. Madison?
Yes.
Dr. Weaver?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
I vote yes, and Mr. Buckaloo?
Yes.
Thank you.
7-0.
The record reflect a 7-0 vote. Item 198.15, this is a bit of business that the board has to do. Each year, we're required to identify a representative to Wayne County Association of School Boards and another representative to the Michigan Association of School Boards. And the way we go about that is to ask for volunteers, and then the board confirms that person in that position. So let's begin with Wayne County Association of School Boards. Do we have a volunteer to fill that position?
Let me, go ahead. I was going to ask a question, does Ms. Adele
Yeah, that's what I
currently
was going to say, because she goes.
attend that? Would you like to continue? I hope.
I have no problem knowing that Mrs. Walker is on the board, and has a vote in that capacity, instead of asking her to serve as both, that by me doing it would give us another vote, unless there's somebody else who would like to do it.
Works for me.
Okay, works for me.
Okay, can we confirm that with just an aye? Aye?
All in favor?
Done. And how about the Michigan Association of School Boards? Do we have a volunteer for that position?
Oh, I'm sorry, I defer to Mrs. Hines.
Mrs. Hines. Okay. Can we, how are we going to phrase this? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So it will be Mrs. Madell and Mrs. Hines.
Thank you.
That brings us to 199.15, designation of newspapers. Dr. Harmala?
Yes, you have a recommended motion. This is an annual part of your organization in the beginning of each calendar year, and we're recommending that we continue with the Observer and Eccentric newspaper, the Journal newspaper, and the Wayne Dispatch. So there's a proposed motion in front of you.
And we need a motion
So moved, Madam.
Support.
by Mr. Griffin and Ms. Walker. Any discussion? Seeing none, I think we're ready to vote.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mrs. Madison?
Yes.
Dr. Weaver?
Yes.
Mrs. Hines?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
I vote yes, and Mr. Buckaloo?
Yes. Item 200.15, designation financial auditors, Plant Moran. Dr. Harmel?
Yes, again, this is another organizational feature. If you recall, earlier in the school year, we had Plant Moran in to do our financial audit. They spend a good deal of the summer with us, and once again, we're recommending that they continue to do that work for us. Motion is in your packet.
Mr. President, I so move.
Moved by Mr. Griffin, seconded by Ms. Walker. Any discussion? Call a vote.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mrs. Madison?
Yes.
Mrs. Hines?
Yes.
Dr. Weaver?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
I vote yes, and Mr. Buckaloo?
Yes. Again, the record shows 7-0 vote. 201.15, review and approval, legal firm representation. Dr. Harmel.
Yes. If you recall, early in my start of the career here, we had received notice that one of our attorney firms was increasing their rates. We knew we would be addressing renewal of legal firms at this meeting. So in your packet, you received a copy of a letter from Clark Hill dated June 25. You had a cover memorandum from Mr. Larson Scheidler revisiting the fees of all of our firms. We're recommending continued use of Clark Hill for general counsel, labor, workman's compensation, bonds, elections, finance contracts, student discipline and expulsion, and environmental and specialty matters. Lusk and Albertson, PLC, for special education matters, student discipline, and our work with board policy previously approved. Troon Law Firm for elections as needed, and Kelly Cawthorn for governmental and legislative affairs. Again, the motion is in the packet.
Motion?
So move.
Griffin, second.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Is there any way to lock in the rates, being the increase happened mid-year when we had already approved them at the January board meeting 2014, to lock in these rates for a complete year?
We don't sign a contract with them per se. It's a fee-for-service basis, so they give you notification. We could certainly choose not to use them. If we chose not to do that, we would need to propose another firm for you. In terms of the policy work, that was a specialty item where we're contracting for that particular service, but most of the service is fee-for-service as you work on a case.
And the fees for other law firms are the same?
Correct.
And with the exception that we have undertaken one additional service through Lusk Albertson.
Correct, for a fixed fee.
Any additional comments, questions?
My only concern is the rate increase and having that happen again mid-year.
And for the record, I'd just like to agree with Mrs. Madison. That is one of my concerns, too, about the rate increase.
I mean, we still have to take into consideration all the cuts that we've made.
Certainly can talk with Clark Hill and let them know our concerns.
Additional comments, questions? I'll call a question.
Dr. Weaver?
No.
Mrs. Madison?
No.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mrs. Hines?
No.
Mrs. Walker?
No.
I vote yes. And Mr. Buckaloo?
I vote yes.
1, 2, 3, 4.
4 no?
4 no, 3 yes.
Can we recommend that we look into seeing what direction we can go in as far as for them?
We will need to have some approval to continue our work between now and our next meeting, but if we can continue to use the existing firms until then, we'll certainly bring another proposal to you at our next meeting. That would be the option, unless we call a special meeting.
Mr. Chairman, would a motion be in order then to extend the contract for 1 month and so that the administration will have those people to work with? If that's the case, I would move that motion. We get a second.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion to extend 1 month, and it's been seconded. Do we need any discussion on that, or are we ready to vote? Call vote, please.
Mrs. Madison?
Yes.
Mrs. Hines?
Yes.
Dr. Weaver?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
I vote yes, and Mr. Buckaloo?
Yes.
7-0.
So just for clarity, what I'll be bringing back to you in a month is additional ideas relative to the increase in fees from Clark Hill. Okay?
Would it be, would there be an opportunity at this time to discuss other law firms?
Certainly
to take
could.
the lead?
Certainly could bring you other firms' fees, structures, so you can look at that if you'd like to do that.
I would ask that you would look closely at Lusk and Albertson.
Okay. Any others that board members are thinking about?
I agree with Dr. Weaver.
Okay. Okay, thank you so much. We'll bring that for you at our next meeting.
All right, that brings us to 202.15, Superintendent's Report. Dr. Harmon?
Yes, thank you, President Buckaloo. Good evening, board members and community members, and Happy New Year to everybody. It maybe feels like we've been back for a while, but it really is our Happy New Year return to school and all the work that we do. I have 3 items to share with you tonight and with our community. First, I want to talk about snow days or inclement weather days. I know that our students hope for snow days every year, as I'm sure I did as a student, only now, not so much. I actually hoped for no snow days, and I did not meet my goal on that one. We've received a lot of emails, calls, and questions relative to how do we decide whether we're going to call school off or not. And I thought it might be helpful to share a couple of things that we have to think about. We'll also be posting a letter from myself to our parents, families, and community on the website so people can look this up. There are no hard and fast rules to snow days. One of the questions that's come in over the past week actually was, what's the legal temperature at which you must cancel school? And there is no legal temperature, and there is no legal snowfall amount. So what do we think about? First and foremost, we always think about our student safety. Can we get students to school using our transportation fleet safely? That's first and foremost. That's our priority. We want students here, but we want them to arrive very safely. We have a skilled and knowledgeable transportation department and many other knowledgeable staff who actually begin checking the conditions of our roads and monitoring those conditions as early as 3:30 and 4 o'clock in the morning. So we're up and ready to go at a very early time to make sure we can get students here safely. Also, it's important to recognize that there are many factors that go into calling a cold day or a snow day, if you will. One, of course, in relationship to cold and snow is how cold is it going to be? How much snow is going to fall? When is it going to fall? What is the depth of the snow? What is the type of the snow? Can they clear the roads? Are they not clearing the roads? Will the ice work, or will the salt work rather, and things like that. So there is no one way to answer that question, and many of our students I know would like for me to say if it snows 3 inches, we won't have school, but that's not going to happen. So we're going to pay attention to a lot of factors. Another thing we think about is the timing of a storm. So, for example, if we are tracking the storm and it's going to hit between 10 a.m. and 1 p.m., well, guess what? Kids are already in school, and they won't be sent home until after the storm, so likely we're going to have school on that particular day. We do a lot of tracking of the graphs on the National Weather Service. I also consult with other superintendents and meteorologists to make sure we're all tracking the same storm and we know what's going on, and meteorologists help us out with that. There are 100 different kinds of what-ifs that we could think about that change the circumstances of any particular storm. But let me give you a couple of guidelines on cold. If the temperatures are going to be negative 20 or greater, we start to consider cancellation of school. It's a consideration first and foremost because frostbite can set in if skin is exposed to that temperature for up to 30 minutes. And we think about that in reference to how long students are at a bus stop. But again, we have to look at the timing of that temperature, whether the temperature is wind related, and what's the duration of the cold. If it's only going to hit negative 20 from 2 in the morning till 3 in the morning, and then it's going to start to warm up, likely we're not going to have a cold day. So again, we're always tracking that hour by hour. And again, with snow, there's no certain measurable number of inches. Usually, we're all made aware through the media that a storm is coming, and if you visit grocery stores, you know it too, because everybody goes out to the grocery store before the supposed storm. But again, it just depends on when that snow falls and how much snow actually blocks up the roads, the driveways, and the sidewalks. So we will always be paying attention. Our staff was up and ready to go at 3:30 this morning, making sure that the snowy conditions we faced this morning were not going to get in the way of getting students to school, and they did not. So, since getting students to and from school safely is our primary work, I'm going to encourage our students to dress for the weather. I'm going to ask our high school students in particular to think about not wearing flip-flops in January, not always a good idea. And I would encourage something greater than a hoodie if it's a little bit chilly outside. And a fact that we all might need to know or have forgotten is that our heat is maintained in our body when we wear a hat. So sometimes wearing hats are helpful. So I'd encourage our students to dress for the weather, parents to encourage your children to dress for the weather, and that will be your part of helping to keep you safe, and then we'll also do our part to help to keep you safe. When we have a snow day or an inclement weather day, we will always make sure we let you know what's going on as soon as possible. We will make our cancellation notification through multiple means. We use robocalls. You will never get one after midnight or before 5 a.m. I know people want to know early, but I would think it would be highly inappropriate to have a robocall wake you up at 2 in the morning. So think about that. Watch the website. Look at Twitter messages. The news media are always notified. Look for the 11 o'clock news, 10 o'clock news, and the AM news. Those will all help you. So please pay attention to those sources. And again, we want to keep our students safe, but we will do everything in our power to let you know as soon as possible what's going on with the weather. So I hope that's helpful in some way for all those who have emailed questions, called, and had thoughts about how would we decide if we're going to have an inclement weather day. Second thing I want to share with you tonight is shifting back to legislation that we talked about prior to the break when our legislators were finishing their work in Lansing in December. There were some minor education bills that were passed. However, the major piece of legislation alluded to by Mr. Larson-Scheidler was the ballot proposal that will be taken up by the citizens in May relative to road funding. And our legislators have promised with that ballot proposal that this particular proposal would not then allow the state to shortchange the school aid fund. But the legislature did decide that the voters would make the decision as opposed to themselves. So more information as we have more to give you, but that ballot proposal will be in May. Finally, I will be convening my superintendent steering committee, which will include personnel, parents, high school students, and community members. The committee will meet 4 to 6 times per year. Meetings will be approximately 2 hours, and those meetings will provide for the strategic guidance and assist with sharing information that helps us to attain our mission and vision as a district. Parents, students, and community members, if you are interested or know somebody who may be interested in serving in this capacity, please have them see the Superintendent Steering Committee section of our district website, and applications would be submitted, please, by Friday, January the 23rd, 2015. Staff applications are being accepted now as well, and they're due actually this Friday. So if you have an interest in serving in that capacity, I'd love to have your application come in, and we'll look forward to working with our staff and community on our direction setting. So thank you so much, and that's what I have to share for you tonight.
Thank you. Item 203.15, Board of Education Committee Reports. We start with the Policy Committee, please. Mrs. Madell?
Thank you. Policy Procedures Strategic Planning Committee met on December 10th, and present were Dr. Harmala, Sally Madison, Carol Madell, Cindy Schofield. Also in attendance were Ron Madison, Tom Frorich. And of course, the minutes were done by Jan Teague. Thank you very much, Mrs. Teague. The meeting began at 6:32 p.m. The meeting goal was to identify a process to be used in reviewing the Board of Education policies and the order in which to do so. Dr. Harmala distributed copies of the indices from each of the 9 sections of the policy manual for review and suggestions that members of the committee decided by prioritizing which section to work on first. Trustee Madison suggested starting with the 8,000 series on students. Trustee Madell added that policies should also be identified where the committee would need additional administrative and legal counsel input as well. After much discussion, the committee decided to use the following process to conduct their review. 1, identify the policy sections by priorities to begin the review. 2, Dr. Harmala would assign the policy sections to appropriate administrative staff for review and input and meet with Kevin Sutton, legal counsel. It would be determined which policies were outdated and no longer needed, which policies needed to be updated, and which policies are still current. A matrix will be developed that summarizes this information. 3, the policy committee would meet to review and give their input on recommendations and draft language of updated policies. 4, this information would then be distributed and shared with the entire board along with the policy committee's recommendation to adopt or revise the policies further. 5, once the section or subsection of the policy was adopted by the board, the process would start over with another section. The committee members also brainstormed ideas on the development of rules and regulations. They discussed the differences between policies and guidelines, the need to have a more formal structure at the district level, and a difference between overall district rules and regulation versus individual buildings. It was suggested that once the policies were adopted by the board, they need to include in the reference section if there are district and building rules and regulations pertaining to the policy. Trustee Schofield noted that this would be helpful to board members in answering citizens' questions and directing them to the appropriate people. Board members would identify any guidelines per section of particular interest for their review. The committee prioritized the start of the policy review process in the following order. First, section 8,000 students. Second, 7,000 instructional program. Third, 9,000 public organizational relations. Dr. Harmala suggested that the goal should be to review and potentially adopt 3 or 4 sections a calendar year. Trustee Madell also proposed that while the policy committee is reviewing the above sections, the finance committee could be simultaneously reviewing the 3,000 fiscal management and the 4,000 series, which is business management facilities section with administration and legal counsel. After discussion, the recommendation of the committee is to bring the policies to the board for their approval at a special Board of Education meeting instead of a regular meeting. The policies could be brought for adoption at the full section, half section, or quarter section, depending on the length of them. The policy committee will meet again in February prior to the midwinter break to review the progress of the 8,000 policy section and make the appropriate recommendation to the entire board. Dr. Harmala noted that at that time, we will be able to better assess the process, progress, and time frame that the committee has set for itself. The meeting was adjourned at 7:28 p.m. Respectfully submitted, Jan T.
That's my understanding. No further action by the board is necessary. Can we have a report from the policy committee, Dr.?
Finance.
I'm sorry, Finance Committee.
Thank you, President Buckaloo. The meeting date was January 6, 2015. The meeting began at 2:02 p.m. and concluded at 3:15 p.m. Members present: Michelle Harmala, Tom Buckaloo, Trav Griffin, Dave Kallmeyer, John Albrecht, Kelly Bowl, and Jim Larson Scheidler. Members absent, excused, Fred Weber. Two items that you've already heard in the agenda tonight. Number one, the offer to purchase Blanchette. Discussion of the offer to purchase Blanchette for $1. The board has already approved and entered into a contract with Wayne County RESA for demolition. The formal offer to purchase Blanchette will be presented to the board in the January 12th meeting. Fiscal 14-15 budget amendment. Jim Larson Scheidler reviewed the first amendment to fiscal 14-15 general fund operating budget. The committee was presented with a detailed overview of the amendment, followed by questions and discussions by the committee. Respectfully submitted, Jim Larson Scheidler.
That brings us to our last item under committee reports, and that is the Board of Education mission statement, which we need to sign for the upcoming year. And if you'll indulge me, I'd like to take a second to read it to you. It's posted on the back wall, and we will revise that within the next month. Our mission statement reads as follows. As Wayne-Westland Community School District Board of Education trustees, we are accountable to uphold our commitment to provide the best education for our students' future. We will accomplish this through fiscal responsibility and by supporting all facets of family and community with the utmost respect, integrity, and transparency. And this is our mission, and we sign to remind ourselves and to let the public know that this is what we're all about. And I'll begin that right now. Age again. Thank you. Thank each of you. And that brings us to item 204.15, citizens' comments, non-agenda items.
General comments.
Do we have any comments from, would you step to the microphone, please, and announce yourself?
All right, thank you. I'm Michael Canty, councilman from the city of Inkster. I also chair the Nankin Transit Authority, which provides busing service for both the cities of Wayne and Westland. I'm very gratified to know that you're concerned about the debt issues that have been carried over from the old Inkster School District, and there are a lot of questions that come about in that regard, and I'm going to encourage citizens who continue to be interested in that matter to attend these meetings so they can have those questions addressed personally. I also wanted to suggest, this probably should have come under the agenda items, but I want to suggest that when you make news releases to the neighborhood, that you also consider the Telegram newspaper, which is the greater distributed paper in that particular area in the city. I know that there is not a lot of distribution of that paper in this area, but it has probably the greatest circulation in the Westland School District portion of the city of Inkster. So if you would consider that when you make press releases to keep the people informed about what's going on in the Wayne-Westland district. Lastly, I am very gratified by the emphasis on recognition of veterans. I'm going to ask Ms. Hines to kind of keep me in the loop on that. I spent 23 years in the Air Force, so my interest is significantly there, and I was indoctrinated at Fort Wayne. So it'll be interesting to see how that process goes when you introduce the students to that indoctrination process, because I remember 90% of that we walked around in our skivvies. And there were a couple of stations where we were bare naked. So that may be an interesting adventure for some of the students. But I just want to just welcome Ms. Hines, who I know personally, to the board, and I'm very proud of her, and I'm sure she will do a good job for you, and I ask that you allow her to maintain some contact with me with regard to the veterans issues that may be coming up that I could represent for the board. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And thank you for your service.
Good evening. My name is Vicki Dobbins. I am a past River Rouge School Board member, secretary, and trustee. I am also a past, maybe I'm still a member of the Wayne County Association of School Boards, also a member of the Michigan Association of School Boards. I'd like to say hello to a couple of my friends that I see here, Tom Shiner, Doctor, and Commissioner, and especially Ms. Hines' son. But I like to say to you, I have been working with Ms. Hines throughout this campaign. I am so excited. I am so proud of her and what she has accomplished. And I'm sorry, but I'm from River Rouge, so I slid all the way. But for a young woman who's got the ambition and the integrity and the inspiration and the spontaneity and all the things that she's got, and not only does she have it, she takes that little boy with her everywhere she goes, and that's to be commended every step of the way. I commend him too. We are also members of the 13th District, so if any of us know about the 13th District, we know that that's another organization that is very, very busy. I'd like to say to you, Tom, thank you so much for welcoming Ms. Hines and the board, for welcoming Ms. Hines. I think she's going to do a great, great job for you. Just give her, let her go. She'll be okay. And to you, Ms. Hines, let me say this, that you have entered into an organization of school board members, not just the 7 that you see here, not just the superintendents. You're going to run into all school board members. We are a collective bond of people who have one thing to do. That's to teach our children, to keep our kids on point. And we have to think about the generations and where they're going right now. I'm in a lot of schools. A lot of these kids don't have direction. With this school, these kids have direction. So, Ms. Hines, congratulations to you. I applaud you, my girl, and you just keep doing what you do, okay? Thank you so much for having me. Again, Vicki Dobbins from River Rouge.
Thank you, Vicki.
Are there any other comments? Yes, sir.
Just wanted to say short comments. Just wanted to say congratulations to the 3, and I know it's a lot of hard work and taking that passion and working with people, and I think it's good. I just wanted to come up here and say good luck. So thank you
very much. Additional comments? Seeing none, we'll move on to 205.15, review and recommendations, Board of Education. And this is my turn, isn't it?
Select whoever you want.
Ms. Madison?
Let our newest go first.
That's a great idea. Ms. Hines?
Okay. This is the time where you get to make comments about anything that is particular of interest to you that is happening in the district. Maybe it's something that you've attended in the past, or somebody that you'd like to say thank you to or recognize for a special effort.
Okay, well, I'd like to thank the board for taking me on. I really appreciate everything. I'd like to thank the community, my family, and I'm very excited about being on the school board for Wayne-Westland. My son, he attends Marshall Upper Elementary, and I am very impressed at the principals over there. They run that school very well, and I'm just really excited.
Mrs. Madison?
I was in debate if I was going to say anything at all tonight or if I was going to read anything, and I decided that what I sent out was truly from my heart and definitely something to not feel ashamed or embarrassed of, so I'm going to take my time to read it. I had sent a board letter to each of our board trustees that I wanted to share with the community because it speaks a lot about who I am and what I believe in. To all fellow school board trustees, it was recommended to me that I should campaign to each board trustee if I really want a board position. It was recommended to me to think about what to say and how a checklist could be seen as childish. I have spent a great amount of time in drafting a letter to each board trustee to address my concerns on past practices on board positions in the annual process. After much thought and consideration, I have concluded that I am baffled to have such an overwhelming support from our community of over 14,000 votes, combined now with serving 2 years on board, and that has resulted in my need to campaign. I am confident that as professional adults, we would all agree that no one trustee or group of trustees should campaign for any board position. I am confident that we all would find it beneficial in many aspects for trustees to rotate each board position in some facet rather than controlling a board seat. As a friendly thought, I would like to encourage you to consider the meaning of great leaders create great leaders. With that being said, I intend to move forward and encourage the opportunity for current and future board trustees. It seems appropriate to me that a trustee have the option to serve in each board seat during their 6-year term. I am truly interested in a board seat this coming year of the following in order of preference. 1, treasurer with the ability to stay on the policy committee and not move to finance committee. 2, secretary, or 3, vice president. In my view, the first 2 are equal and a fair start to move up to vice president, then president as a progression. If I am chosen for a board seat, I would like to mentor any board trustee who is interested in my board seat in the upcoming year. If I am not provided the opportunity to serve in a board position this upcoming year, I will not have the opportunity to serve in each board position during my term. In good faith, I would like to address the following. I would like to change the process of how I vote for fellow board trustees for annual school board positions. This decision is to encourage growth, support, and unity within our complete board, meaning every board trustee. We are only as strong as our weakest link, and it would be refreshing to implement forward thinking. My thought is to move forward with fellow board trustees mentoring, supporting, and sharing duties and positions, to encourage mutual respect, to be equal, more informed decision-making, and unity. This would allow each trustee an opportunity to serve in each capacity during their term and to allow growth for learning in each position. I would appreciate each board trustee to complete the brief form below. This will allow me and whoever would like to review this information to decide who to vote for and for in what position. I have taken the liberty to start with mine and added Melody Hines. If you are willing to participate, please fill out how many times you have served in each board position from your current board term and then from your past board term. I sent that letter out with the intent of trying to form unity and to break what the community sees as a clique amongst our board. It's clear that there's still a division going on, and I just ask for everyone to consider while you sit here tonight. Are you back by popular demand, or because there's such a limited willing of people who might be willing to sign up to work with you? This is a very tough decision to be on board, and it's a very hard process to learn. And it makes it even harder when people don't want to be welcoming and have the professionalism to move forward and try to encourage you to learn and to grow. Moving forward from that, I do want to thank the people that we've had here tonight, the students who've done wonderful presentations for us, who've acknowledged when hard work has gone into something. And I would also like to take a moment to request that we have something done where we leave these here for the students who put the hard work and effort into this for us, that maybe these could be laminated and left here as a view piece here in our room, or maybe in the entrance of the lobby. And I also wanted to congratulate Michelle Anderson on her award and all of the very hard work that she puts in for our district. Thank you.
Terrific.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would also like to acknowledge and congratulate Michelle Anderson and the students who paid tribute to the board tonight. It was done very well, and I commend them for it. And I'd like to take a minute to congratulate our past president, Shauna Walker, who led us through some very difficult times, selecting a new superintendent, and put in a lot of hours beyond those that are certainly just perfunctory. She did great work, you did. You helped us select a great superintendent, and I congratulate you, and I still look forward to obviously having you sitting beside me and working with me here. But I just think I'd like to acknowledge your great work as the leader of this board through some tough times. To Melanie, I'm looking forward to working with you. I think you're a great addition to this board, and you're going to bring a lot of things, new things that I can learn from you, I hope. And to the newly elected officers, I congratulate each one of you. I look forward to working with you. And I'm supposed to mention via the board policy that I went to a legal and accounting workshop with Tom and Carol. That's probably the only one I care to go to at Schoolcraft, so I mentioned it and I learned a lot. And lastly, I'd like to say I want to thank the superintendent for warning me about wearing a hat in cold weather, and I did bring one tonight. Now,
My
that's not
pleasure.
all of that, particularly for those of us who don't have a lot of hair on top and we really need it. So for that, I take that to heart, and I thank you so much for it.
My pleasure.
And that's it, I'm done.
Mrs. Walker.
Thank you. I just want to take the time to thank the community for re-electing me to the Board of Education. I really enjoy sitting on the board. You know, with all the things that go on, it's a rewarding seat. I also want to thank my husband, Dwayne Walker, because without him, a lot of things go on when you're on the board, and you go through a lot of emotions, a lot of ups and downs, and I just want to say thank you for being there and being very supportive of me. I definitely want to say thank you, and I echo what Mrs. Madison said about keeping the thank you and probably displaying it somewhere for P.D. Graham and the John Glenn students, as well as Dr. Harmala, with you all coming up with that. That was touching, and it brought some tears. It meant a lot to see that. As far as being your president last year, I enjoyed every bit of it, and I thank each one of my fellow board members because you made it easy. I think we worked together well. We made it through getting a new superintendent, as well as losing a board member and having to appoint one in the middle of doing a superintendent search. And without you, there was no me. So I thank you each for that. I also want to say congratulations and welcome to Mrs. Hines. I know that you'll do a wonderful job, and I look forward to working with you. Congratulations to all the new officers. And that ends what I have to say. Thank you.
Dr. Weaver?
Yes, thank you, President Buckaloo. I actually had a different take on the superintendent's report. I wanted to thank her for crushing the hearts of 12,000 students who are at home right now doing the snow dance and praying for a good day.
I'll work on that one.
All right. Thank you to the students who honored the Board of Education tonight, and also to past President Walker. You did a fine job, and we appreciated your leadership. A while ago, I voted no concerning our attorneys. I just wanted to give a note of explanation. I'm not and have not been satisfied with the Clark Hill firm and the representation of the district. And the other reason is that to raise their rates, I mean, this is a firm who's representing public schools. They understand the position we're in, but to raise the rates at this point is unconscionable to me. I further ask that we give good consideration to Lusk and Albertson, who has served us well in the past. And that concludes my comments for tonight.
Mrs. Madell?
I'd like to welcome everybody back. It would appear that everybody had a very safe holiday and that everybody came back to us in one piece, and that's always appreciated and good for our morale in our school district also. You know, I have learned over the 5.5 years that I've been sitting here. Some of them have been easy lessons and some not so easy. I always really appreciate those moments when you're sitting there going, okay, I'm in the middle of this. What am I supposed to be learning from this experience? And listening to the stories that others told about leadership experiences that they had had. And moving forward in Head Start to make Head Start relevant and a valued program to our community, and realizing that Head Start is community-based and family-oriented. So with that said, as usual, in front of you is the financial statement required by federal law for you to have in your possession and look over. Any questions? Please call Mrs. Kajawa, please. Not me, because I'm not too sure I understand every nuance of the financial statement, but I'm getting better at it. I would like to congratulate the people who came to our meeting for recognition in the form of Mrs. Anderson and her family, knowing how much effort she has put into this project that she has going in her classroom for her students, and how much the students value what they are learning about our military services. Also, to our new employee for Student and Legal Affairs, I hope he understands how hard we work here and what will be expected, because he's going to need to hit the ground running. So I'm pretty sure Mr. Albrecht will be mentoring him till he can get his feet going in the right direction and move forward for the betterment of our school district. I also would like to congratulate my fellow board members on being reelected, or in your case, elected, to this. I love what I do. I really do love what I do. Good days, bad days. Like I said last year about this time, some were great days, some were rocks. But I love what I do. And I couldn't do that without the support of the other 6 people who sit on this school board with me. It doesn't matter what you bring to the table. It's the fact that you are here and that you are willing to work and work hard for our students. That's all that matters in the end, is that we're working hard for them. I appreciate the support that I've gotten from administration and from the staff and from the community. Thank you for coming to the polls. Thank you for voting, whether you voted for me or not. Thank you for demonstrating your right given to you by our Constitution. I'd also like to thank my family. They've disappeared. And you were right when you made the statement earlier that this is a very emotional meeting today. This was a much different run for school board than it was 5.5 years ago. Times are tougher, money is not as available, and when it came down to it, it was my husband and me sitting there running my printer. I'm sure I'm going to have to go out and buy a new one after running all those postcards. But I signed everyone individually because I wanted people to know that I care and wanted their vote, because I do love what I do. I couldn't have done this without my husband's help. I could not have done it with all your help and support either. And it's hard seeing my daughter here. She lives in the Chicago area. This is the one you've heard about, who works for Aramark. And we did fly her in, and she's already flown out now too. And it's very hard for me to only see her maybe once or twice a year. That's very difficult as a mom who went through 9 months of morning sickness with that kid. So I'm sorry, I miss her terribly. But as a good parent, I raised a very independent and responsible child. And my youngest, who lives in South Carolina, is the same way, very independent and responsible. So I guess I did a good job. I just didn't realize the effect would be. I don't see them as much as I would like to. One of the things that I've been doing a lot of this year is knitting. This summer I knitted a lot of hats, which I'm sure you saw in the board book as a donation. Yeah, I'm thinking I need one from Mr. Griffin, by the way.
I'll take it.
And I donated.
A black hat.
I donated like 20 hats to the Family Resource Center. Well, since that time,
Okay, that's better.
I have been quite busy, even through the holidays. I've got more hats and scarves that I will be sending over to Head Start, so you will see my name in there next month as a donation to our program. There are a lot of people like me that have a few extra hours a day and a whole big box of whatever's left over from your last craft project. In my case, it was 2 ditto boxes full of yarn. That wasn't really enough to do anything, but it made a great hat for a kid. So I have been busy. In fact, I think I have 10 hat scarf sets ready to go over to Head Start. So anybody out in the listening audience and at home, if you've got those extra bags of yarn, we would appreciate the hats and scarves being knitted for our students. I want to make sure that I thank the students and the administrators that help those students. Like I said, I've been here for 5.5 years. I have never had a student group or group of students come to us and thank us for the job we do. It's truly unfortunate that out in the community, a lot of people don't understand what it is that we do. I can't tell you how many times I've been asked, where is my office? And I remind them it's the trunk of my car. Or how many hundreds of thousands of dollars I make each year. And I'm going, I'm sure the check is in the mail. But we don't always have people who recognize us for what it is that we do unless they're watching community access and channel surfing. But we do work hard, and we work hard for our community, and we work hard for our students. And it was fabulous to see it being recognized today. Thank you, and thank you for the certificates and everything else. I appreciate it. With that said, Mr. Buckaloo.
Thank you. Dr. Harmala, Mrs. Madison had a wonderful idea. Can we leave these posters with you?
We will take care of it.
We can do that then?
Just leave them on the table and we'll collect them one day.
Fantastic. That was an excellent idea. And again, the short time I've been here, I've never seen anything quite like that, and it's most appreciated. It truly is. Ms. Hines, congratulations to you. Welcome aboard. And tomorrow we're going to give you the list of things you need to get started on.
Okay. Right on time.
Thanks to Donovan and to Dominic from Roosevelt McGrath for getting us off to the great start with the Pledge of Allegiance today. Thank you, Mr. Larson Scheidler, and also your staff for getting us a revised budget. I know that we're going to probably see another revision down the road, and that's okay. We do appreciate the work that you do, and the limited information you have to get it done with, but you're keeping us on the right side of the ledger. We appreciate that. In keeping with the history theme that was so big tonight, I saw a brief item in the Wayne Dispatch yesterday. Wednesday evening, that's the day after tomorrow at 6:30 at the Wayne Historical Society in partnership with the Wayne Public Library is hosting Gladys Sabarillo, who will be talking about a book that she's written, Michigan's US 12 Heritage Trail. This is not Mrs. Sabarillo's first effort delving into Michigan history. She's been doing it for quite some time. And if you don't know who Mrs. Sabarillo is, she's a longtime Spanish teacher, retired now from John Glenn High School, and she has a real passion for Michigan architecture. At one time, she specialized in Michigan post offices, if I'm not mistaken. So if you have nothing better to do Wednesday at 6:30 and you would like to learn a little bit about the Chicago Road, that's Michigan Avenue, the main road between Detroit and Chicago, I would encourage you to go to the Wayne Library at 6:30. Again, that's Wednesday. I'd like to congratulate each of the members of the board who were elected or re-elected, and to the officers, including myself. Especially, I'd like to thank the board for the faith that they have placed in me in giving me this office. I will do my best to see to it that I give you the service that you expect from me. And I would be totally remiss if I didn't mention Mrs. Medell and Mrs. Walker, who in the short time I've been on the board have provided me with an excellent example of board leadership. I hope that I've paid attention to what the two of them have done. I know I can count on them for help, and I will be calling on each of them in the weeks and months that come. With that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Support.